17 hours, Strait of Hormuz, February 2026. The pre-dawn surface of the strait lies deceptively still, moonless, 79 degrees Fahrenheit, a faint petrochemical haze drifting north from Bandar Abbas. Then the radar screams. At the Combat Information Center aboard US Abraham Lincoln, CVN-72, the AN Spy 1D phased array radar paints a picture no tactical action officer wants to see at 0517 in a compressed waterway. 43 surface contacts. Then 51. Then 67. All bearing northeast, all accelerating. Speed, 48 to 63 knots. The contacts are small. Irjik Baghamar fast attack craft and Ashura-class suicide speedboats, surging south in coordinated vectors from 3 separate launch points along the Iranian coastline between Bandar Abbas and Kesham Island. Simultaneously, the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft orbiting at 22,000 feet northeast of the strike group detects 7 distinct radar emission signatures consistent with Iran's C-802 anti-ship cruise missiles, already airborne, already tracking. The tactical action officer aboard Lincoln does not hesitate. The words are controlled, clipped, and final, declare hostile. Weapons free. At 0519 hours, US Stockdale, DEG 106, Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer positioned 14 nautical miles northwest of the carrier executes the first engagement. The Mk-41 vertical launch system opens. 2 RIM 162 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles accelerate from their cells at Mach 4, tracking the lead pair of inbound C-802s. Engagement range, 27 nautical miles. The Bridgewatch team does not breathe. At 0521 hours, Contact 2 and Contact 3, both C-802s, disintegrate. Radar returns vanish. But 5 additional missiles remain airborne. 5 distinct threat tracks, 3 distinct bearing lines. The battlespace is fragmenting faster than single-ship engagement doctrine anticipates. At 0524 hours, the response expands. Aboard US Chaffee, DEG 90, 2 SM-2 Block Ebe missiles launch from the forward Vils Bank. Simultaneously, US Spruance, DEG 111, fires a coordinated 4-missile SM-2 salvo. The Aegis combat system aboard Lincoln herself assumes primary fire control, distributing engagement authority across the strike group's entire surface combatant screen. 3 remaining C-802s are targeted. The 4th slips through the outer intercept basket. At 0526 hours, FA-18E Super Hornets already airborne on combat air patrol, call signs Striker 11 and Striker 13 are redirected by the E-2D. Both aircraft carry AIM-120C AMRAAM air-to-air missiles. Striker 11 acquires the leaking C-802 at 14 nautical miles, fires 2 rounds. First missile, impact. The threat track vanishes at 0527,004. The outer ring holds. The swarm, however, is not a missile problem. It is a numbers problem. At 0528 hours, the IRC fast attack boats, now confirmed at 74 individual hull contacts, are inside 22 nautical miles and accelerating. The lead element separates into 3 wedge formations, 1 targeting Abraham Lincoln directly, 1 vectoring towards Stockdale, a 3rd angling for the replenishment vessel Usans Rainier. Each Baghamar carries a combination of 107 mm rocket pods, RPG-7 crews, and recoilless rifles. 37 boats carry limpet mine divers. The intent is not a clean naval engagement. It is saturation. It is chaos by design. At 0531 hours, the MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, 2 aircraft from HSM-73 Battlecats, egress the flight deck at full military power. Each aircraft is armed with AGM-114 Hellfire II missiles and the Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. The lead helicopter, Wolf 01, acquires the northern wedge formation at 8 nautical miles. Hellfire away. Impact in 7 seconds. 2 boats eliminated. Reload. Fire. 3 more. The rotor wash drowns out the secondary explosions below. At 0534 hours, The 5-inch Mk-45 gun mount aboard US Stockdale opens fire at maximum rate, 20 rounds per minute, targeting the western wedge of fast boats now inside 6 nautical miles. The 70-pound projectiles arrive before the sound does. 6 boats shatter in a column of white water and burning fuel. 4 more turn hard to starboard. They do not escape. At 05:36 hours, the Phalanx's Block 1B aboard Abraham Lincoln achieves autonomous engagement mode, 20 mmr depleted uranium rounds at 4,500 rounds per minute. The lead Boghamar, 900 meters off the port beam, ceases to exist in 1.4 seconds of fire. The second boat takes 0.6 seconds. The third is already turning, already too late. The system does not distinguish between hesitation and commitment. It simply fires. The sky erupted at 05:38 hours. 14 simultaneous engagements. The entire western approach detonated in a cascade of secondary explosions, fuel stores, ammunition, explosive-laden hulls igniting in chain sequence. Black columns rose at 11 separate coordinates. Striker 14 and Striker 16, now on station with AIM-65 Maverick air-to-surface missiles, prosecuted the remaining eastern wedge. 6 boats, 4 Mavericks, 2 gun runs with 20 mm cannon. At 05:41 hours, radar contact with the eastern formation dropped to 0. The central wedge, 19 boats bearing directly on Abraham Lincoln's starboard quarter, represented the most concentrated threat vector of the engagement. At 05:39 hours, the destroyers Chaffee and Spruance executed a coordinated gun and missile response at overlapping engagement ranges. SM-2 missiles struck 4 boats at 4.2 nautical miles, kinetic impacts that converted fiberglass and aluminum into shrapnel at supersonic velocity. The remaining 15 boats entered the Phalanx and Mk-45 engagement envelope simultaneously. The engagement lasted 94 seconds. At 05:43 hours, 2 Irjik boats reached approximately 600 meters from Lincoln's hull before both were destroyed by interlocking Phalanx fire. The nearest limpet mine delivery vessel was neutralized at 340 meters. 1 rocket-propelled grenade struck US Stockdale's superstructure. The warhead did not fully arm. Minor structural damage. No penetration of the hull. At 05:44 hours, the last radar contact representing an ERG surface vessel, a lone Boghamar running northwest at 55 knots, was prosecuted by Wolf 01 with a final Hellfire round. Impact confirmed. The return vanished. Numeric tally at 05:44 hours, 27 minutes after first detection, 67 ERG fast attack vessels confirmed destroyed or mission killed, 7 anti-ship cruise missiles intercepted, 0 U.S. naval vessels sunk, 0 carrier aviation assets lost, 1 minor topside strike on a surface combatant. 22 minutes after initial contact, silence returned to the Strait of Hormuz. Not the silence of negotiation, the silence of aftermath. Usens Rainier reported no damage. US Stockdale confirmed the superstructure strike caused no operational degradation. 3 American sailors sustained minor shrapnel injuries from debris. All 3 were treated aboard Lincoln and returned to duty within 6 hours. Search and rescue operations, conducted under rules of engagement requiring recovery of survivors where safe, retrieved 11 ERGC personnel from the water. They were transferred to the flight deck at 06:14 hours for medical evaluation. The surface of the strait was burning in 26 locations. Coast Guard and commercial vessels were advised to maintain a 15 nautical mile clearance zone until 090 hours. Drone reconnaissance confirmed 0 ERG surface assets remaining in the engagement area. The 2nd Carrier Strike Group, US Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, flagship of Carrier Strike Group 12, transiting east from the Mediterranean, received the engagement report at 06:31 hours and maintained its approach vector. No change of orders was issued. The tactical lessons were immediate and unambiguous. A 74-vessel swarm coordinated with simultaneous anti-ship cruise missile salvos represents the most complex combined arms threat scenario the U.S. Navy has prosecuted in live conditions since the tanker war of the 1980s. The engagement validated the layered defense architecture of the carrier strike group under simultaneous multi-axis pressure, a scenario that academic war games had modeled but operational commanders had never been required to execute in a compressed 27-minute window against a fully committed opponent. The Aegis Combat System's distributed fire control architecture, allowing Lincoln to coordinate engagement sequencing across 5 surface combatants and 2 airborne early warning platforms simultaneously, performed within designed parameters. The Phalanx SILS Block 1B demonstrated that close and autonomous engagement against swarmcraft remains viable, even in high-density scenarios where human reaction time is operationally irrelevant. Strategic ramifications cascaded almost immediately. Within hours of the engagement, oil futures markets in London and New York responded. Brent crude moved 14% in a single session. The Lloyd's of London War Risk Insurance Zone was formally extended to encompass the entire Persian Gulf. 3 liquefied natural gas tankers diverted from the strait within 90 minutes of the engagement report becoming public, rerouting south around the Cape of Good Hope, an additional 14 days of transit time per vessel, representing tens of millions of dollars in supply chain disruption per day of sustained closure risk. Diplomatically, the engagement created a structural paradox that no conference table was equipped to resolve quickly. Iran had initiated the engagement. The United States had responded with devastating asymmetric superiority. Yet the physical proximity of 2 American supercarriers, one now inside the Arabian Sea, one bearing down from the Mediterranean, meant that the next Iranian decision was not made in a vacuum. It was made with the full understanding that the combined air wing capacity of us Abraham Lincoln and us Gerald R. Ford exceeded 140 combat-configured fixed-wing aircraft, representing a strike package capable of simultaneous prosecution of targets from Tehran to Bandar Abbas to Fordow. What nations do under those conditions, whether they escalate, whether they stand down, whether they accept terms, reveals the true architecture of deterrence. This engagement fundamentally reshaped the calculus of asymmetric naval warfare in confined water environments. The Ur-Gises swarm doctrine, refined over 2 decades of exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, studied in Western war colleges, debated in congressional testimony, met a carrier strike group operating at full combat readiness in a waterway 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest navigable point. The result was not ambiguous. The doctrine did not perform as designed against a prepared, layered, networked opponent. Whether Tehran's strategic planners will absorb that lesson, or whether the political pressure of humiliation will demand a response that tactical reality cannot support, is the question that will define the next phase of this crisis. 27 minutes, 67 vessels, 7 cruise missiles. The strait was held not through negotiation, not through the passage of UN resolutions, and not through the restraint of adversaries, but through the sustained, technically superior, operationally decisive demonstration of overwhelming naval combat capability. 2 supercarriers now flank this waterway. The world's oil moves through it. The equation is not complicated.